Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Dining with Defense. We talk about a lot of really awful things in the true crime community, and sometimes people are critical of the fact that we like to discuss dark events. That's fine. They don't get it. They don't understand what we get from it, and that's fine. It's just something that a lot of us find really, really interesting. But as I have listened to some of the criticism of true crimers and true crime community and true crime creators, I started to think, it really is kind of our responsibility, because we talk about all of these awful events, to talk about how to prevent becoming a victim in one. So I decided to start this new playlist. They're just kind of going to be extra episodes that I upload from time to time, where we talk about how to protect yourself. This first episode today, we are going to talk a little bit about owning a gun. I'm going to preface this by saying I am in no way advocating that you own a gun. It is a very personal decision. It is 100% individual. And if you are not comfortable with a gun, I would never suggest you get one. I grew up around guns. I'm from a very rural area, and it's something that's just always been a part of my life. I am also a 25-year road musician. I play music in places that a lot of you wouldn't even go in. Playing in bands also sometimes brings weirdos around and stalkery type people. And I own a gun. It's always right where I can get to it. And that is just the way that I choose to live my life based on the experiences that I have had and continue to have. If guns are not your thing, we will be talking about other ways to protect yourself, but this is how we're going to start this series. I've got a friend of mine named Shawn here who is going to help us with this series. He knows a lot about guns and he knows a lot about self-protection. Today on this first episode, we are just going to talk about some very basic things to consider if you have never owned a gun and if you are considering purchasing a gun for protection.
So my name's Shawn, and I come from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I've been very fortunate over the years to get to do training with some of the best people in the world. I started in just basic martial arts when I was a kid. I was the one who needed that little boost of confidence, getting picked on. It's your very typical story. Well, that in fact was me. And through my training, I started getting into the sports side, but then I made this shift into the realism side. I started where I did some security jobs, where I worked both armed and unarmed security. I've graduated from the Executive Protection Institute, and this was back in the 90s. Got to work on some executive protection details. And I was always kind of good at teaching, so I started taking on roles of being instructors in different capacities. I was very fortunate to be able to work with what are considered some high-speed individuals. I got wrapped into being assistant instructor with groups that were working with what are now known as the Navy SEALs and a lot of your tier 1 type guys, as well as police, all the law enforcement, whether it be private security contracting, or police departments. And I've just been kind of pulled into that world. So I've gotten to see a lot of things that a lot of people don't get to see that don't do the job, even though I don't do the job. But for some reason, they like the way that I can get information across. So I've been really lucky that way, but I also have quite a bit of experience as well doing my security work and through my training. So I've had a lot of great training. I've got to work with a lot of great people. I work for a company that's owned by an ex-CIA officer, and we focus on training. And we have a lot of different training, and my typical skill set, the classes that I run are like riflecraft, pistolcraft, some counter custody, escape evasion stuff from time to time, edge weapons combatives, and empty hand combatives. And I also lecture on the pre-assault indicators, predatory behavior, and things of that nature within the courses of these classes. So that's kind of where I come from, and it's served me well. It's been a fun time.
What is the most important aspect of personal protection?
Awareness. Be aware. We have to be vigilant. We have to be aware of what's going on around us. I heard an amazing quote once, and I really wish I could remember who told me this, to give them credit because it's awesome. But it's, if you look like food, you will be eaten.
Wow. Don't
look like food. And I've been very fortunate to be able to train alongside of some guys that have worked detectives, and they're violent crimes back east. They see a lot of action. They always interview their suspects. And one of the questions my buddy would always ask is, why this person? Why did you choose this person? Because he wants to understand why. And most common answer was, we're out there looking for MFers slipping. They're looking for people not paying attention, don't know where they are. They're closed off from the world with their earbuds, and they're stuck in their iPhones all the time. And it's just, they're not paying attention. And you look at that from a kind of a predatory mindset. If I look at two different people, I've got one person that is very aware. They're projecting confidence. Whether they are or not is irrelevant. They're projecting that. Then I look at somebody else and maybe they don't quite seem like they know where they are. They're just kind of shutting everybody else off. Which person am I going to pick? Because I want the greatest, reward for the least amount of risk. I don't want the person that looks like they might be able to give an accurate description of me, that might fight back, ending up with DNA under their fingernails or whatever for future forensic studies. I want the person that I'm going to get the drop on, that's not going to see the assault coming, and I'm going to be able to get the jump on them and get what I want. So awareness, I think, is the number one thing. Not being paranoid, but being just aware. Just be aware.
Who should own a gun?
In my opinion, I think anybody who feels comfortable with owning one or wants to protect themselves should own a gun. I mean, it's a constitutional right. I think that should stay set. Obviously, if you don't feel comfortable having one around, I don't want you to have one, because if you're not comfortable with something, you're going to be dangerous with it, okay? And so I think anybody who's willing to take that on, get the training, and who feels like it's a necessity or even just something they want to help them feel safer, I think they should have it. And I think they should have the right to have it. Again, I highly encourage that you get the proper training. You want conscious competence, and then you also want unconscious competence. We do not ever want incompetence. We have to be confident, and that will lead to comfort and success with the platform.
Should you have a concealed weapons permit?
That's going to depend on where you live. So here in Utah, we just went with constitutional carry. So I no longer have to have the card and the piece of paper that says I have a concealed weapons permit. Okay, that's good and bad. For a lot of people that didn't want to go take the class and spend the money to get all that, they can now put a firearm on, cover it, and they can cruise around, and they feel safe doing that. I have a concealed weapons permit. The reason I have it is because I don't always stay in Utah. So by having that permit, it allows me to have reciprocity with other states. So I can go other places and take my weapon with me. Like if I go back home to Cincinnati to visit my family, I can carry my firearm in Cincinnati under my Utah license. And so that's why I really think it's important for me to have that license, because then it opens up way more doors for me. But then again, it's going to be something that's an individual decision. But I think you should get it just because it gives you just so much more versatility. There's still going to be places you can't ever carry. And that's just the reality of how it is. But for me, I like to have that option.
Should you research and learn about reciprocity?
Absolutely. Every state has different things. So it is incredibly important that you do the research. I mean, there are websites out there, government websites that you can go on that will tell you exactly what you can and cannot do in those states, or even certain counties in some cases. There are some states that in different counties there are different rules to what you can carry, when you can carry, where you can carry. And so you always need to do your due diligence. You have to always look and be above board, especially if you're looking to carry this weapon as a good person, as a citizen defender, then you are held to a much higher standard. You need to rise to that standard. Don't be the person that ruins it for everybody. We have to take that one step further, and we have to be aware of what's going on, what we can and can't do, because if you make one misjudgment in another state, you could lose your right to carry that firearm in your home state. So we want to make sure to not let that happen. So yes, you do need to consult the correct people, whether it be attorneys in that area or through different websites to find out exactly what you need.
How do you feel about open carry, which is wearing a gun where others can clearly see it?
All right, so for me personally, I think the right to open carry is a necessity. We need to have it. It's kind of a constitutional right, the right to keep and bear arms. I also believe that under no circumstance should you do that. Because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And for me, when I see open carry, I see a lot of liability there. Okay, so if you see people open carrying, a criminal element can look at them and go, hey, there's a free gun on that guy's hip. I just came in from behind into the blind side, crack him in the head with something, take his gun. What's he going to do about it? I got his gun. So now we've got another firearm out there that was owned by maybe a righteous person, now is into the criminal hands. So open carry is, in me, a bad idea. Also, if I am casing a joint as a nefarious individual, and I walk in and I see this gentleman over here has a firearm on his hip, and he's wearing, the Glock t-shirt, Second Amendment. It's like, so he's kind of a threat to me right now if I'm looking to really do a strong arm robbery here. I might just go ahead and take that person out. They are the greatest threat to what I want to achieve. And if I'm drug driven or something, that might be a great option. You're advertising, you're drawing too much attention to yourself. I like to be the guy that nobody notices in the room of people. And so if I have to pull mine out, I have the element of surprise. That puts me ahead in time. That's just a good thing. And so I really don't think open carry is a great idea, with one caveat. If I am out hiking the backcountry, okay, and I'm fishing, there's not people around me, okay, I will open carry a large gun because there's large animals. At that point, I'm not worried about people. I'm worried about mountain lions. I'm worried about black bear. I'm worried about even rattlesnake for that matter. So that would be the only time for me that I personally feel comfortable open carrying is when I'm in a wilderness situation, but not in town. Another thing, I've seen this happen where I saw a gentleman walk into a store. He was open carrying. He was legal to do so. Everything was above board, but it freaked out somebody else. They ran and tackled this guy and disarmed him. That situation could have turned out really, really bad. And I mean, if they hadn't have actually got the gun from him, he now feels he's under attack. He could have shot and killed that individual and probably been justified in doing so. Another concealed carry permit holder could have seen that go down and intervened. So that's a problem as well. We don't want to induce panic. There's a lot of scared people out there in the world, and that's okay. Let's not give them anything else to get all worked up about. Let's not give them something to try and be a hero over. So, and if you have a place where you are constitutional carry, just put your shirt over it. If nobody knows, it's not a problem. It's not a big deal. So that's my take on open carry. I think, yes, the right should be there. You should be able to do it. I really don't think you should do it.
What is the best way to learn to shoot a gun?
Probably the best method to learn how to shoot a gun is go find qualified instruction. Okay, a lot of firearms ranges, even in places where they're not gun-friendly states, there are people that operate ranges. Go get instruction from qualified individuals in person. I really think if you've never shot before, you want to be in a room with somebody who can be right there next to you, making sure that hands are in the right places, fingers are where they should be, not where they shouldn't be until it's time, and that your safety is first and foremost. So qualified instruction, NRA certified instructors are great. You just need to get very basic safety first and then sound fundamental shootings. But I think finding a place or a person that is a legit, safety-minded, competent instructor, that is your absolute best bet.
How often should you practice shooting, and what is the best way to practice?
So as far as shooting your weapon, it's a training thing for me. And right now with the cost of ammo, the availability of ammo, I don't like to shoot a lot of live rounds. There are other options for training, and we can get into that here in just a few minutes. Okay. But I think when you first buy a gun, most of them have a break-in period. So you go down to the Cabela's or the Cal Ranch and you buy yourself this brand new nice 9mm. You're going to want to run at least 250 rounds through it, okay? Because that's going to get all the parts moving. It polishes everything up, and it just kind of minimizes the chance for it to have a mechanical failure at some point due to it not being broken in. So you need to do that. Other than that, once you've got really good solid fundamentals, I personally don't live fire train except maybe once every 2 to 3 months, and then it's usually only about 50 rounds or so, because it's really expensive to feed those things right now, and it's really hard for me to replenish my supply. I don't want to deplete the ammo I have, but I still need to every once in a while remind myself what it feels like to have that recoil in my hand, what it sounds like to have that go off. Always wear ear protection if you can, but it's obnoxious. It's a loud thing. It's an explosion in your hand. And you have to remind yourself from time to time what that looks and feels like, but you don't have to do it constantly. However, you should be training regularly to enhance attributes that are better, but it doesn't have to always be live fire. So I guess short answer is every couple of months, go shoot 50 rounds, just so you're still familiar with what it feels like, what it's going to smell like, what it's going to sound like. And then that also gives you a chance to, get reconnected with your pistol, and then you get to clean it too.
What is the best way to store your weapon and still have it available to use quickly if you need it?
Again, that's something that I think is going to be up to the preference of the individual storing it. And it's going to depend a lot on your environment, your situation, what's going on. When I was single and didn't have any kids, my weapon was stored on the nightstand when I was sleeping. That's where it was. Now that I have a child, even though she is safe with firearms, she trains, even though she's 7, I don't leave it just laying on the counter anymore. It now goes in a lockbox. Okay, I've got several different ones at my house, and I've got different weapons, but they're all secured now. They're secured, ready to fire. So all I've got to do is defeat the security mechanism on the box, retrieve my firearm, and it's in go status. Because my situation changed with the advent of having a child, it goes in a lockbox. So it's really going to be up to the individual. What are they comfortable with? Because I don't want to be responsible for somebody playing around with it and having an accidental discharge, getting hurt, or even just putting a hole in the wall. That's going to be an inconvenience for sure. So I want to make sure that it's secure for me. And that's, again, just a decision you're going to have to make based on your situation and your comfortability with the weapon.
When do you use your gun?
My firearm, I carry my firearm to protect me and my family. If I am in a life and death situation, it is justifiable lethal force. That's when it's going to come out. I'm not going to pull it out because I'm angry. I'm not going to brandish it to make myself appear bigger than I actually am. I'm not going to get into a measuring contest. So it has to be justifiable life and death situation. I've got to be justified using lethal force for this thing to break leather. Now, if that does happen, you've got to be willing to take that step. It can't just be an empty threat. You've got to be willing to back that up, because got to understand, you're escalating a situation now. It's at the top it can be. You're going through the roof when you pull out a firearm. It is for real. If I happen to be in a place, and I've made this decision for myself, and this is something that everybody has to make their own decisions. We all have our limits and our levels we're willing to go to. I know mine. I don't know yours. That's for you to figure out and decide. But for me, say we'll just use Walmart for example. I'm in Walmart. We have an active shooter going down. If I don't hear the shots near me and I'm with my child, we're gone. I don't care about going and intercepting the shooter. Nope, I'm taking my child and I'm getting out of there through whatever exit's closest, whether that's a fire exit in the back or that's a main exit up front. We're leaving the building, period. If I'm with, say, my wife and child, and there's a active shooter goes down, and it's like 2 aisles over, I can tell it's right there, okay? They are going to head out. I, at that point, will choose to intercept the threat, because as we're running, I don't want to get shot in the back. So I will send them on their way. We actually have a family plan. We have code words. We have rally points. We have a system set up. And we all have roles to play in this, and we all know our jobs. But it's in that situation where the threat is so close that if I start running, it may trigger them to turn and engage me because we're now moving. I'm going to handle that. But I don't need to be a hero. I need to go home to my family.
So what's the takeaway?
So your firearm is merely a tool. The weapon is here. Okay. Anything else that you're using is merely a tool. It's the firearms help you feel comfortable. They make you feel more safe. That's excellent. Get the training. What you need more than anything is awareness. And the reason I say that is if I see a situation before it's happening, I see something starting to unfold, and I just am not in it, I've won. You will win 100% of the fights that you are not in. So we don't want to engage. I don't want to hurt another human being. I really don't. I don't want them to hurt me. So being aware, just having that sense about you of what's happening in public, you should never have to go to your firearm. That is there as an absolute last-ditch resort. Everything's gone south. Fertilizers hit the ventilator. You've got no other option. At least you have that force multiplier, that tool that can help you against larger, stronger, faster, younger, meaner, uglier people. And that's all it is. It is merely a tool. But the weapon's here.
I think Shawn did a really good job of laying out just some very basic things to start to consider if you're not familiar with guns and if you've never owned a gun. I like what Shawn had to say about awareness. I am aware, some people would say a little paranoid about my surroundings because, again, I've had to be. And I especially love what he said about, the weapon is here. The gun is just a tool. And I completely agree with Shawn. Nobody ever wants to have to fire a weapon at another human being. Nobody wants to hurt somebody else. Nobody wants to take somebody else's life. And if you know people that are really obsessed with guns and talk about how they wouldn't hesitate to shoot somebody and kind of have that attitude that they almost wish it would happen, stay away from those people. Those people are much more dangerous than criminals are. I hope you learned something today. I did. And again, we will be building on this series as we go. I really want to put some good information out there. I want you all to stay safe. I sure appreciate your support, and I will see you soon.